I'm Jim Check. With me, Ian Burns, managing editor out there in the nation's capital. We're 3 minutes late, so we're going to go really fast on our intro. How's that? Lots going on, though. Lots going on. Kind of an overcast day, and no snow on the ground here, but I know in Ottawa, she's a white world, right?
It's bleak.
It's bleak. There you go. Headlines. Let's kick it off here. Almost 80% of Canadians fearful of 2026. In BC city requests state of emergency amid out-of-control crime. Iran ready to talk as American fleet arrives. Bank of Canada on hold. Liberals not remorseful about the Freedom Convoy. Instead, they want more power. Jolie claims that it's a much more chaotic and dangerous world. CBC is the problem and the mouthpiece. Michael Ma speaks. You gotta wait for that. Carney tells Poilievre to learn from flip-flop Ford. That's a nice headline. McKinnon gaslights Canadians with blue sky metaphor. What's causing food inflation? IMF calls out Canada. Mining closures tell a different story than the touts, and Tim the Touter walks it back. Climate agenda alive and well with Liberals. An auto policy on the road. Government spent close to $1 billion on Medicare for migrants last year. War refugees paid close to $1 billion. Liberal tree scheme massively undelivered. Gun grab, an absolute disaster. Well, we got lots here. Ostrich cull cost over $6 million. Health Canada says gene-modified pigs good to eat. Just don't tell anybody. Canada's population conundrum. And Trudeau's girlfriend jumps into the deep end of politics. Does that mean JT's back as well? Yet another mill closure in BC. And Starmer follows Carney to China. It seems like the old playbook for those guys. Ukraine war is a bloodbath. And like we said, the EU deal will not be popular with Europeans. And Justin's back in the news. And guess who else is back? His old sidekick. We got him right at the end. Justin's old sidekick is also back on the really big show. And yeah, it's a big day, a big show. And again, like, share, subscribe. Share this on Facebook if you can while we're live here. That would be appreciated because we can't put it on Facebook. They took our audience of 200,000 away. So you can help us by putting it on your Facebook. That would be helpful. And especially put it underneath any Liberal MP you can find that's advertising on Facebook. Just put the really big show right underneath for them. Just right there in their face. What's that?
Especially Mark Miller, our dear friend, dear cherished friend, Mark Miller.
Yeah, just if everybody just go on Mark Miller's Facebook and just put this show on there about 25 times for him. We got some nice comments here. Grateful that we discovered you guys. That's awesome. Thank you. If you need viewers from Ontario, well, you can help us. Spread the word in Ontario. Freaky 4456. And Check and Burns, enjoying the analysis and commentary. Subscribed. And then somebody stuck up for us there and says, "You're not creeps. You guys are great." There you go. Somebody called us creeps. I
was reading some of the comments, and there's quite a lot of negative references to Mr. Burns, and that is obvious. And I'm going to assume that that's a reference to Mark Carney looking like the Simpsons character. But
yeah, we're going to go with that.
I have that name, really, isn't it?
But you can rest assured, like we converse and we also read the comments. We read the comments and we appreciate that. We also appreciate everybody that comes here on a regular basis. There's Brett, I see he's here. A lot of my 2 cents usually here. So we recognize a lot of faith is here. So yeah, we recognize a lot of people that show up every day. That's awesome that you're here. And we also like the people that contribute to independent journalism, but you can contribute just as well by sharing this as much as you can and getting it out there to as many people as possible. Right now, if you can go to your Facebook or wherever you got, X, whatever you can, just dump this live feed on there. But let's get going here. Bank of Canada, we showed you poly markets yesterday and said there was a 99% chance that the Bank of Canada was going to do nothing. And guess what they did? Nothing. Imagine that. And the Bank of Canada, the poly market says the Bank of Canada is going to do nothing again in March. And then so the rates there, they've paused now. October, December, and now in January there's been a pause. We got this chart here that shows you the elevator up and the staircase down. I don't know if you can pull up that next chart there that shows the Bank of Canada path. There you go. So that's during COVID there, the 2020 to 2022. And that's when Tiff Macklin said, go out and take that mortgage rest assured, Canada, that we will not be raising the interest rates into the foreseeable future. And then somebody pushed the elevator button up, and there were some big, big jumps there. One of them was a 1% jump, right? And then we took the long, slow staircase down, and it looks like we're taking another long pause here as we find our way down. But, you know, some of the interesting things in here that we need to watch for is it looks like the Americans are actually trying to suppress their own dollar. It could be have a lot to do with the Japanese yen, because there's some trouble on the Japanese yen. So maybe they're pushing it down to kind of like save the Japanese yen. But also, as the Canadian dollar climbs, most currencies are climbing. No, don't put that one up. As the Canadian currencies climbing, a lot of the other currencies climbing, that will give some reasoning for the Bank of Canada to cut, because they artificially hold our Canadian dollar down just so we have cheaper exports and cheaper labor. That is one of our things that they've done this forever, is our Canadian dollar has been manipulated on purpose to be lower than the Americans. Chinese do that as well. The Chinese hold down their currency valuation so the cheap labor, so manufacturing moves there.
The Chinese are in a category of their own when it comes to currency manipulation. But yeah. In general, the point I think is right. Yeah, we like to have a bit of a lower currency here.
But the vast majority of Canadians, this is the big one, the vast majority of Canadians fearful about what 2026 could bring. And that really has a lot to do with the economy. And then, you know, yeah, there you go. We got a new guy on the board here, so we're going to have a little bump in here. Oh, it's our producer's on the board running the screen there, so we can blame Andrea there. We're going to have a few bumps here today for sure. But yeah, so a lot of people are scared of what's going on in 2026. You know, if you watch CBC, you're scared of an invasion for, you know, you're literally chomping at the bit. I think most of the stories a lot of people are really calling it out now. They're really seeing all the TDS stories, all the anti-American stories. It just seems to be they spend more time on stoking fear than they do on reporting the news. And you can test this. We're going to show you some stuff here in Canada here that needs to be called out. And whoever's are messing around with the screen there needs to stop that too, because that's now not looking good there on the screen. But there you go. Like I said, we're going to have some bumps today. Again, we don't have the $1.55 billion that CBC has to play with.
Just to interrupt briefly, because you mentioned CBC and you're saying that they're fearing an invasion. I just went on their website, and it's the Attorney General of a foreign country talking about a pretty insignificant city within that foreign country. That's the headline. That's completely dominating CBC's news. It's all about Minneapolis. It's all about events in the Midwest.
Those slides don't look right, people. Yeah, it just seems to be dominating. I don't know if we can, there we go. Let's just maybe, again, be patient with us today as we kind of like bump our way through this. Again, if somebody would phone CBC, write them an email and say, you're not using that whole $1.55 billion, are you? Or you need to eat that many sausage rolls on a regular basis that you can't spare any for our show here. The Convoy. How many stories on the CBC right now on the truckers' convoy? How many people have called out the Liberals? Now it's two courts. Now the appeal court said that it was an abuse of power and privilege, that they trampled on Canadians' rights and freedoms, that they broke the charter. How many? Zero. And then, you know what, the minister, she actually wants more power. This is Jolie, the Minister of Industry yesterday, that's Minister Jolie there, says they need new powers to protect Canadians in a chaotic and dangerous world. And then, you know, the opposition MPs in response recalled Cabinet's unlawful 2022 crackdown on the Freedom Convoy that sought, you know. Let's play this clip and then we'll talk about this more. We got this clip here to play when they asked Jolie, watch her eyes, watch Minister Jolie's eyes here.
The Liberal government assured Canadians that invoking the Emergencies Act complied with the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. The courts have since ruled twice that the government violated the Charter and failed to meet the legal threshold. Do you regret voting for and enacting the Emergencies Act?
10 seconds, and then we have to turn to...
Yes or no?
I think this is a question also that is before the courts and
yes or no? Do you regret it?
Okay, I'm sorry. This is all the time we have.
Thank you.
10 seconds Canada gets on like 2 decisions on the abuse of power and privilege and the invoking of the Emergencies Act. That's what 10 seconds. That's what you get. That's the answer from the Liberals in 10 seconds. You see her eyes there when she squinted, like it's before the courts. Does that mean? Sounds like they're going to appeal it to the Supreme Court. So you keep appealing it until you get the right decision. Is that how it works here in Canada?
Yeah.
Yeah, just like that, eh? Yeah. Again, Melanie Joly said this, that Canadians, they need new powers. The ministers, the Liberal government, that abuse power and privilege by invoking the Emergencies Act. It says 2 courts now in Canada. You guys are, you got to stop putting stuff on the screen there. Now they want new powers, like more power over Canadians, more powers to abuse. And then here she says, our goal is to protect Canadians. That's our #1 responsibility. How about the Canadians where you literally trampled them with horses? How about protecting those Canadians?
That's not the kind of Canadians that we want to protect, Jim. We want to crush them.
Apparently, we do.
To protect the good Canadians, we have to crush the bad Canadians with horses. So
yeah, so there again, no response. It's been what, 9 days now, 10 days on the Emergencies Act and no response. And then there was you cut her off, 10 seconds. That's it. No, sorry, can't answer. Nobody, the CBC, the Global, the CTV, the ones that get their face, and nobody seems to want to ask the question. On the 2 courts now ruled that the Trudeau Liberals, including Mark Carney, because he advised on freezing bank accounts, nobody wants to ask those questions. Nobody seems to care about the freedoms and rights of Canadians, that they broke the Charter. One of the most sacred things in Canada, isn't it? One of the most sacred documents in Canada, the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. I thought it was the most sacred document here in Canada.
I'd say it was the British North America Act, the Durham Report. But yeah, I mean, in modern Canada, for sure. Yeah.
And then, like I said, it's the media is the problem. And Terry Newman puts this out here too. She's from the National Post. She says CBC needs the Barris Weiss treatment, except it's far, far worse than CBS. So it is. It's basically a propaganda arm because nobody's asking these questions. Like CBC takes in $1.5 billion, and they don't seem to find a reporter that wants to go after any of these MPs. Mark Carney asked these questions on the violation of the Charters and Rights and Freedoms. Nobody?
I'll say of Terry Newman, that's a typo. Her name is Barry Weiss, whatever. She didn't mean to write Barris, but I'm sure people know it. But yeah, sorry, I just have to. I've got to pull the brake and make an announcement that the CBC has written an article about the Online News Act.
What?
Just published right about now. Everybody sound the alarms. They've spoken to Mark Miller, of course.
Wow.
They've been given a comment by, then they've named her. This is a woman that I've spoken about in the past, his press minion. They've actually named her, so I guess I can name her too. Her name is Hermine Landry. She's the one that repeatedly refused to respond to a million emails from me. Then said, don't worry, if anything happens though, we'll keep you in mind sort of thing. We'll send things over to you. Anyway, they've sent it to the CBC. I can check my inbox now. No Hermine in there. But anyway, what they've said is basically nothing, but they're in talks. They're speaking with Meta about potentially letting news back on to Facebook in Canada. So that could be very consequential if that happens. And
should we wait? Should we wait by the post office box, or how long should we wait?
Well, I mean, I'm very tempted to just chuck her an email while we're having this conversation, just to kind of rub it in. But it gets to a point, I suppose, most people who consume the news don't really get access to this side of journalism. I mean, I think we're probably about the only people that talk about it in this kind of...
Likely...
But I look at it and I'm pessimistic. It's pointless. You contact these people relentlessly and they ignore you because they don't like you. That's the truth. And they like the CBC because they pay for it. And they know that they can guarantee a certain kind of coverage. That is the nature of your democracy, Canadians. Like, you need to get that into your heads. This is not something that you're supposed to know. It's not something that you're told. This is mostly kept in the shadows. But this is what happens. These are people paid for by you. Their job is to speak to people like me without, favor, without giving preferential access to certain people. Their job is to put information out into the public via the press so that we can then give it to you, the people, and then you can make your decisions about whether you support something, whether you want to vote for a certain party or whatever. And it just doesn't happen. They give it to their favorites and they deny it to people that they dislike. That's the nature of this system that we have.
So my 2 cents asked if it's all news outlets. Yeah, even CNN is blocked in Canada. Everything is blocked in Canada. Although the Liberals spend money on Facebook now because they say it's too important of a platform to ignore. So that's why they spend money on there, and they can advertise on there. So it's like they can put their propaganda on there. News outlets cannot put their information on there. Some of them pay to put their information on there. With taxpayer dollars. They use taxpayer dollars to go on there, and they can buy sponsored content. Yeah, so they can pay.
Spent something like $10 million during the election just to go on Facebook. This company that they've antagonized to such an extent that we can't go on there to put news on there, but they can put their propaganda on there. And I'm saying propaganda in the dictionary definition term. Their language, their side, no counter argument, just them. They can do that, but we can't go in there and hold them to account.
Somebody just said CBC is fair. I lost my train of thought. CBC is fair and balanced. We are Canada paid. That's hilarious. Awesome. Likely the only reason that the Liberals are even looking at the Online News Act, because it was named by the State Department, is one of the 3 things that they needs to be in part of the negotiations, and that is supply management, the Online News Act, and what was the other one there? It just escapes my mind right now.
Which one, sorry? So I'm looking at.
There's 3 things they named in the negotiations that are stalling negotiations: the Online News Act, supply management, and there was one more thing.
Yeah, and the other one was
banks.
Yeah,
banking, access to banking. Yeah, we did talk about somebody said you need to talk about the protest that's scheduled for Saturday, January 31st. We did talk about it yesterday. We'll mention it again today. January 31st, there's protests against the Mark Carney and the Liberals on Saturday. And Kelowna is one of those cities. And we did mention it, I think, the other day. And, we're mentioning it again. Sam Cooper also says that story we covered yesterday. We covered this yesterday. 49% of candidates questioned following the 2025 election said foreign agents tried to influence voters. And Sam Cooper said this should be bigger news. We say that as well. Where's CBC's coverage of that? No, they got all their website is all dedicated to Minnesota and TDS. Is the Democratic Party?
If you're interested in events in the Middle West of the United States, perfect. But I mean, this is the same broadcasting outlet, the same public broadcaster, which represents the same ruling class or elite that keeps telling us that we should be patriotic and that they are the custodians of patriotism. If you truly are a patriot and you really do believe in Canada, why are you so obsessed with a foreign country? What could possibly be going through your head that you are this obsessed with the domestic affairs of a foreign country? That doesn't seem very patriotic to me.
Especially when you're taking taxpayer money, when there's so many things that could be covered in Canada, like the Freedom Convoy. Why no stories on that? And it says, I just read that story or looked at that story that they're doing on Facebook, and they name it. It says Kuzma negotiation. So yeah, so it's the Americans that brought on the online censorship here in Canada. Canadians are being censored. Independent media like ourselves have been choked off. Close to 100 outlets have failed since the Online News Act was put into position. Mark Carney's response to it when we asked them the question directly was they were going to give more money to the CBC, and the CBC doing a hell of a job with propaganda for the Liberals. I mean, they're surely not doing a good job keeping Canadians informed. That's what they're not doing. And this one here, this is James Thorne, that economist, putting it out there too. It's like all this smoke and mirrors, and again, the CBC not covering this stuff too. What's really behind all this stuff at Davos and stuff like that? Why aren't we focusing on the USMCA deal? That is like 80% of our trade, our biggest customer. And again, like Ian says, the consult a globe, like that round object that we're on, like the third rock from the sun, that's us. They take a look at that globe and see where we should spend our energy. So little energy is spent there. So much gaslighting is spent with CBC. No balanced stories, no balanced stories. CTV the other day, they actually let somebody come on the program and say that Trump is kidnapping and killing citizens. Like, and no pushback.
Like I said, I listen to the CBC. I listen to CBC every day. I always listen to the World Report on the radio in the morning, which is like I think that's the one that they get the most ratings for. It's like the big boy commuter report. First story was obviously ICE, and it was a completely biased story with no counter argument whatsoever. It was just interviewing NGOs and lawyers and all sorts of people like who hate it, obviously, who just absolutely despise it. And then, so that was a lead story. And then later on, it really should have just been the same package, but later on they had another story which was about Italy, because Italy's hosting the Winter Olympics or something like that, and in I think Milan, whatever. Not really sure, but something in Italy anyway. And because there's been a story that the Americans are going to send ICE agents to Italy for some reason. I don't quite know it. It's for the Olympics, I think. It's I guess it's to protect their Olympians or something like that. I'm not actually familiar with this story. But anyway, that's what the CBC reported. And then they interviewed somebody in Italy, or they got, I guess they're like, whoever their partner is in Italy, interviewed an Italian who came out and said, I think it was actually an elected official in Italy who came out and just said, they're fascists and Nazis. We're not going to allow them in Italy. And then that just ended. That package ended. And then it was like, okay, and now for the traffic. That's what CBC's like. You know, it's kind of crazy that I'm going to say this, but I am, because it's true. It is considerably more further down the line on the progressive left than The Guardian newspaper, which is considered to be the heartbeat of the progressive left in the world, pretty much. The Guardian is supposed to be an agenda setter on the progressive left. It's supposed to be as out there as you can be, pretty much, and still be kind of mainstream. And the CBC makes them look like a sort of Nazi newspaper or something like that. The CBC is just so far gone because they don't even maintain the most basic editorial principles, because it's something that they all just hate it. It's like, oh yeah, ICE, Nazis. So they don't even do the most basic thing of putting forward a counter argument. It's so pitiable. It's so dreadful. The CBC is completely off the rails. Like, I know people might think that we're just cranks and we're just these daft buggers like that would walk around with signs and we just don't like the CBC for our own ideological reasons. No, really it is very, very, very far gone. And it's objective at this point because they don't maintain editorial principles when it's about things like Trump.
Thank you to John there. We're going to talk about Keir Starmer here in a bit when we get to our international section, but we do thank you for the contribution to independent journalism. I keep saying independent journalism, it is the year for independent journalists because you can't get truthful information from the CBC, CTV, or Global. They are compromised. They are absolutely compromised. We showed you the other day them in the pizza shop. We showed you the other day in the sausage shop. I mean, they'll do anything to make sure that the Liberals stay in power. They basically prop up power. And maybe on this one here, Michael Maw, the floor crosser, you know, how many stories were done on the 27,000 votes that were silenced? What the CBC did was they said, how many more does Mark Carney need to get so he gets a majority? It was basically like cheerleading. But none of the stories on how can you make a decision and what was offered to you, all kinds of things, all kinds of questions should be asked of Michael Maw. Nothing. And let's listen to Michael Maw as he's now standing on the other side of the floor there.
Mr. Speaker, while I now sit on a different side of the House, my priority remains the same, standing up for my constituents and making sure that concerns are acted on. Last fall, I held a crime prevention town hall in Markham, Unionville. What I heard clearly and repeatedly was concern about auto thefts and home invasions and the impact these crimes have on families' sense of safety. Mr. Speaker, can the minister outline how Canada's new government is strengthening public safety and ensuring
That's good. Well, Liberals have had the wheel for almost 11 years now. They're going to blame the Conservatives? The Conservatives have no power.
Well, they are doing that, aren't they? Like we saw McKinnon, the most surreal press conference in
we're going to
a
have
very
it
long
later
time.
here, yeah.
Yeah, where he literally said, "Oh, we can't do anything because the Conservatives won't get out of the way, won't stop being MPs." Just deluded, really, isn't it? But I guess there's someone's buying it. Somebody is buying it, obviously, because the polls just keep getting better and better for the Liberals. Up 9 points today in the Leger one.
Again, the media, the mouthpieces, make it seem like they're in the right. They don't challenge them on anything. They don't challenge power. They want to basically insulate power and fortify power. Mark Carney's meeting with Daniel Smith and David Eby at 1:20 today, Eastern Standard Time. So it's almost like basically right about now, eh?
50 minutes.
Hour. What's that?
50 minutes.
Yeah, just about now. So again, it's a pooled photo opportunity. Don't dare ask any questions. Hey? Yeah. Thanks for the questions. Is he going to tell David Eby there's a pipeline coming through? We'll see what he's song and dance on that one.
It's kind of interesting that they're all going to be in the same room, though, isn't it? I mean, but we can only imagine that because obviously peasants aren't supposed to be in the company of the lords and ladies. But it is quite interesting to imagine them all together, banging their heads together about this pipeline.
We got a little clip here from Mark Carney.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, last time we were in this House, the member opposite stood up and had a semblance or a reduction of the MOU with Alberta. The Alberta MOU is not consistent with the Sovereignty Act. The Alberta MOU will build a pipeline to Tidewater. The Alberta MOU will build carbon capture and storage. It will build nuclear. It will build data centers. It will build our future. The Sovereignty Act will destroy it. Hear, hear. Mr. Speaker.
That's good. Again, 10 months. What's that?
Pretty definitive, though, from him there, wasn't it? Will build. But, you know, we still don't have any evidence of that, but cool.
10 months. I don't know, like, are they assembling the shovels? What are they doing? What's going on? We're going to show you some of the things that are stopping the building. We showed you capital fleeing Canada. We showed you that yesterday. You're going to learn more here than you're going to learn on CBC, unless you're super interested in what's going on in Minnesota and you want to drive up fear and hate. And again, I just want to point out, look at the picture there. Who sits right to Mark Carney's left there? Who sits there? That's Melanie Jolie. She's always talking about how people are investing in Canada and how we get people to invest. Ask him right there. Ask Mark Carney. He's right there beside you, right to your right. Ask him why Brookfield is investing in the United States of America. Ask him why that most of his investments are in the United States of America. And you're supposed to buy Canada. I thought that was the whole thing. But yet, the leader of this nation doesn't act in the same way that he expects you to act. It's odd, no? One more from Mark Carney as he puts a flip-flop board up on a pedestal there.
Yesterday, before I had lunch with the Premier of Ontario, I had a long meeting with the Premier of Ontario. I would like to introduce the Leader of the Opposition to the Premier of Ontario so we can learn something about cooperation on housing, cooperation on building the best auto sector in the world, cooperation on good jobs for Ontarians and Canadians, cooperation on rising wages, which have risen faster than inflation every single month of the year.
Flip-flop Ford is now the person you should look to for flip-flopping. Like the Crown Royal spilling, flip-flopping. Has he lit a Ford F-150 Lightning on fire yet?
But also he's being commended despite, I mean, he just kind of unzipped his pants and pooped all over Mark Carney, didn't he, last week?
Yeah.
Like, as we said in one of our video excerpts, last week's Doug Ford versus this week's Doug Ford. And it really is a very interesting matchup completely opposing viewpoints. But apparently that's okay. Though I will say, just in the interest of recognizing reality, that was definitely a good line. Whoever it was that came up with that line for Mark Carney, where he said, "I'd like to introduce the leader of the opposition to the Premier of Ontario." That is a very good cheeky line, because obviously those two, Poilievre and Ford, despise each other, really, from what I can gather, and don't have any business with each other, which is completely insane, completely ridiculous, absurd situation. And the fact that that's been allowed to happen is an indictment, I think, of both of them.
Yeah, I would have to agree. But here's the gaslighting. Here he is. He could get the gaslighting award of the year, this guy, Steve McKinnon here.
Well, I don't want to bore your viewers, Vashi, and I certainly don't want to affect your stellar ratings, but I do want to say this one procedural thing. People don't understand that in the House of Commons, as long as you're talking, standing up, wasting time with debate and leaders' talking points from Mr. Poilievre's office, nothing can come to a vote. So unless you're prepared to invoke closure, for which you also need a majority of the House of Commons, then a bill cannot advance. So the Conservatives have adopted, it's an open secret, I'm sure you're well aware as well, that they will let no bill, even a bill that says the sky is blue, they will let no bill advance because they believe that a good day for them is a day where the government cannot advance on its priorities. That's unfortunate. But that is the toxic environment that Mr. Poilievre has looked to foster.
That's good good from Big Steve there.
Just doesn't, I mean, let's just take him at face value. He doesn't understand the Westminster system, doesn't understand democracy in Canada, doesn't understand democracy, full stop, really. That's what he's happy to broadcast. That's what he's happy for this country to assume. Even though obviously none of that is true, and he's just playing silly buggers. He's just being a schoolyard bully, which he often is, this guy. But just something that he should have been berated and shouted at right away there and said, you passed the budget because of the Conservatives. The Conservatives did it in an extremely infantile fashion, but they let you pass that budget. They let you pass the One Canada Act, or whatever name they gave to it. The Conservatives have allowed quite a lot to pass, actually. So where's the recognition of that? And where's our dear, precious Vasi Capellos when we need her to come out and give him a well-earned slap for that?
So we just heard from Melanie Joly. She wants more power after they literally trampled on Canadians' rights and freedoms. This guy just wants every bill to pass through without any discussion or any kind of oversight at all. How many...
Despite not winning the majority. How entitled can you be? The Canadian people do not want you to have that power. They express that at the ballot box. They do not trust you. They do not want the Liberal Party to have that power. So you have to deal with it. That's the system.
Big shout out to Len, I think is Len. If you put your name at the end of it, that's great. Len Ukvi. Well, thank you,
Len.
For the... there you go. You're a gem. Yeah. Global traveler as well. Awesome. Again, if you could share it on your Facebook, you have Facebook, just put us, especially if you can find some of the MPs, the Liberal MPs, or you can put it under the Conservative MPs. You can put it under Jagmeet Singh too. Who cares, right? Who cares? Just put it out there. Just smash it everywhere. Anyway, we'd appreciate it. But he's got the gaslighting award there, Steve McKinnon. Does not believe in democracy in Canada at all. And Carney was at a Holocaust Remembrance Day ceremony. And he said that Canada was complicit in the genocide of Jews in the Second World War. During a speech to Holocaust Remembrance on Tuesday, the Prime Minister spoke of guilt of enablers and the resilience of survivors, adding, "Today we acknowledge that looking away is not a passive act, but an act of betrayal." All the stuff that's been allowed in Canada, those words ring hollow for many, many people. I was invited to an event here, and they said they had to, make sure that it was all screened ahead of time because they're scared for their safety. They wanted to make sure, do you know what I mean? It's crazy.
Absolutely. But as Nelson Cade just mentioned, I mean, that's basically what I was just about to say. What Carney said here is false. Canada is not complicit in the Holocaust. Needless to say, you know what I mean? Needless to say, you'd think this was something that everybody in this country would know, especially the Prime Minister of this country. But no, Canada and Canadians have no responsibility, no complicity whatsoever in the Holocaust. Obviously, that was done by the Germans, by the Nazi Party. That's not complicated, is it? Surely? Like, come on.
Weren't we on the other side? Weren't we on the other side? Didn't we storm the beaches of Normandy? Isn't that us? Wasn't that us? I can't remember now, but I thought that was us.
Yeah, I mean, that's the least of it, really. I mean, liberated the Netherlands as well. Some good that did. And lots of other pretty sort of disastrous episodes. Dieppe, I think, was mainly a Canadian operation, wasn't it? Another disaster. But either way, Canada you have to bear this in mind. Canada's thousands of miles away from the killing fields of Europe. But the Canadians, unsolicited, said, we will fight in this war. We'll be by the side of Britain. They did it. The Canadian leadership did it of their own accord. And men signed up in their millions to go and fight. And then Mark Carney says this astonishingly ignorant, stupid, offensive thing. And once again, talk about the media, it's just gone. It's us two. As far as I'm aware, it is you and I talking about this. I don't know who else has even... I mean, I saw a couple of... When I searched for this, when I was doing 5 things this morning, I saw a couple of people on X who weren't too pleased about it. But what is the point, really? We just do this all for the entire show if we allowed ourselves. But this is really disgraceful. The Prime Minister of Canada saying that Canadians are complicit in the Holocaust. Shut up. Shut your mouth.
Food inflation. This is another one that, again, the Liberals gaslight on this, and they blame, I think Francois Philippe Champagne said it's going around the world, it's everywhere. They never want to talk about what's really causing food inflation. And Canada's food inflation, the highest in the G7. They don't want to take any responsibility for it. And groceries up 27% since, and this is the food professor, up 27% since 2021. So a family of 4 now paying $17,500 a year just to eat. And then in this clip here, we're going to play from the food professor here. Let's listen to Sylviane there here.
Since 2021, it is estimated that our food prices have increased by 27%. A family of 4 used to spend about $14,000 a year on food, and now it's up to $17,500. Why is it happening?
Why? Because we are all in denial. The fantasy has always been around greed in Canada. We've never actually looked beyond that and say, well, listen, maybe we have a structural problem here. For example, the industrial carbon tax, which is actually making our industry less competitive. Interprovincial trade barriers that actually don't allow our companies, food manufacturers, to scale up and sell more food outside provinces into the US as well. The GST holiday last year, we feel that the food inflation rate would have been at 4.2%. The extra 2% was just not the tax. Other part was the cost to actually adapt to a world with no taxes, both at the grocery store and in restaurants. So due to bad policy, really, bad policy.
What? Bad policy?
Thank you to
Bad
Danny,
policy.
by the way. He's just chucked us some sausage roll pocket money there. But yeah, and what does this guy get for it? The foremost food expert in Canada. What does he get for it? As I've said in the past, he gets his name booed when it's mentioned in the House of Commons. Booed by Liberal MPs. So don't even think of trying to do your science.
He's literally the foremost food expert here in Canada. And he's, and it's ridiculous. And he's a professor. At which university is that?
He's at McGill at the minute, I think, but he's also, he's been associated with a few universities. But
he's done tons of studies. Tons of studies.
Billion.
And here's a former Save on Food executive here that's announced his leadership for the BC Conservative Party, talking about food inflation as well. Let's listen to what he has to say.
There's no secret that grocery prices are up in BC right now. So I'm wondering, what can the government do to bring those prices down?
Well, grocery prices are up. You know, if you take a look at coffee for number one, coffee is probably up the highest. I think it's up 42%. Well, why is coffee up? Well, two big reasons. One, the huge droughts they had in Brazil, where a whole bunch of the coffee's produced. Secondly, there's some secondary tariffs that impacted coffee. You take a look at beef prices. Beef prices are because it's way more difficult for farmers to produce products here because the government, in this government, they've been part of higher costs for fertilizer, for feed. Fertilizer prices are up 100% in the last 5 years. The cost of fuel to take products from one place to another is up massively. Crime, they have to solve the crime. Crime in the stores today is 3 or 4 times what it was before. And with crime, when people steal things, and prices end up going up. So all of the issues that we have in pricing in the food business are the same reasons we have price increases everywhere, because the government is not doing the job that it needs to do to eliminate bureaucracy, eliminate red tape, and figure out how to make companies process and do their work as effectively and as efficiently as possible. And that's how you lower prices for everybody.
That's good. That's good. He's going to run for the BC Conservative leadership. He's going to work on his presentation skills there a little bit, I guess. But crime is one that people don't talk about a lot. I mean, we're seeing it all over the place. People walk, because, again, meat's so expensive. I mean, some people have no choice likely but to steal it. I mean, you look at a roast and it's $100. And, like most people have given up on eating beef. It's absolutely criminal, the prices on that. But the Liberals, it's their laws that have driven up prices of food inflation. I mean, there's things that they could remove today. They could remove the clean fuel regulations. I mean, they lied to us for how long on the carbon tax that it didn't lead to inflation? Lied to us for what, 10 years? 10 years lied to us about this. And then when they removed it, they say, oh, look, inflation's come down and look what we did. Look what we removed the carbon tax. But you literally told us forever that it didn't affect inflation. Now, when you take it off, it was like a big thing. So the clean fuel regulations are still there. The industrial carbon tax, it adds everything that's an input cost adds to inflation. And the big one there is food packaging. The food packaging tax, it's absolutely, so we've already lost 7,000 restaurants are forced to close in 2025. And then we're going to likely lose another 4,000. These are things they could remove tomorrow with the stroke of a pen. They could just say no more industrial carbon tax, no more clean fuel tax, and no more food packaging tax. They could remove those tomorrow, but their ideology gets in the way and they won't remove them, right?
Yep. And supply management is
the second largest.
In the room as well.
Canada is the second largest landmass nation in the world. And we have to use trucks and trains to move stuff across. So energy will be one of the biggest factors in moving food costs. And then got to move the fertilizer there. Everything is moving. Everything has to move. We don't have really high density. Most of Canadian lives on that small border, but they have it within their power. With just the stroke of a pen, they could make those changes. Remember, Mark Carney sat down the first day, took that pen out there, a la Donald Trump. They pretend that they hate Trump, but they seem to want to mimic him all the time. That was
he admitted as well to Bloomberg, a British journalist, obviously wouldn't tell a Canadian that, but he admitted that was just for show, and it was to try and channel Donald Trump, make it look like he was doing something. But the other thing is, all these things are true, but I mean, definitely supply management, and definitely the tolerance of this cartelization of the Canadian economy. And this is not new. This goes back to the 19th century and probably even earlier than that, to be honest. But it's like the whole system is based on stakeholders, like these groups, these cartels, these duopolies, oligopolies, who just have so much power in this country, as we all know. We all know how miserable it is. We all know because we all pay our bills. to one of, you know, a few companies. We don't really have much choice. That also happens in the food industry, and it causes serious problems, as Sylvain Charlevoix himself often points out. And somebody was saying, a couple of people actually in the comments were saying he's actually at Dalhousie. Yeah, I don't know. I think he is still on their books. That's still his club. But he's at McGill now, as he, you know, I follow him around. Follow him around. That sounds weird. You know, I watch quite a lot of his stuff and listen and read a lot of his articles, and he signs off as, you know, McGill University these days.
That's amazing. People are talking about Charlie Angus. It's amazing how the media here in Canada, the government-funded media, the state broadcaster, drag Charlie Angus out all the time as their, you know, like their expert in what, I don't know what Charlie Angus is an expert in rage farming, or just you know, like maybe what's that?
Fighting fascists.
Yeah, fighting fascists. That's Charlie Angus. All right. Here's the IMF actually calling out Canada. Remember one of the promises from the Liberal government in the election? They were going to eliminate those trade barriers, those interprovincial trade barriers. Nope, not done. If anything, we have them all fighting each other. It's going to be interesting. I'd like to be in the room there with Danielle Smith and David Eby and Mark Carney there.
Yeah. But you ask why? I mean, I think I just explained it, really. It's these special interest groups. If the question is, why do these barriers exist? Like, why isn't Canada a single economy? Why isn't Canada, and whisper it, why isn't Canada a country in some ways? It's because of these cartels and these special interest groups and these ridiculous colleges and professional associations who just absolutely love the power that they have, and they love what they can do with that, how they can make it almost impossible to be an employee or a professional in somewhere like Manitoba and then just pop over the border to Saskatchewan. They make that so difficult and miserable. It costs God knows how much money in this country every year. How much misery is inflicted on people in this country who just want to move around, you know, who think, they're naive souls that they are. They think, oh, I'm Canadian and I'm working in this part of Canada and I want to go and work in this part of Canada now. That should be easy, shouldn't it? No, it's not. That's not easy.
Sometimes it's easier to go work in the United States, like for nurses, it's easier to go to work in the United States than it is to go work in a different province.
Yeah, and it is not being changed. And I don't think, it doesn't look like it's ever going to be changed because of these groups that just, you know, these magnets almost. It's just absolute madness. There is no desire to try and fix this because it would just be too much trouble. So Mark Carney, for all his greatness, I know many people out there worship at the statue of Mark Carney. For all his magical economic genius, he's not going to do that. He's not going to fix this. He's not even going to try, because, you know, he would probably get thrown out of power if he did.
This is probably one of the most important things you're going to get out of this show today, I believe. Right now, the sun is shining for mining. The sun is literally shining for mining. And I mean, metal prices that we've never seen. Gold at record highs. Silver at, like just like silver over $100 an ounce. I thought I'd never see the day. So I always thought silver was going to go up. Silver over $100 an ounce. Gold, $7,000 an ounce Canadian. Like copper over $5. Like nickel. I was a mine site controller for a nickel mine. So the sun is shining for metals, absolutely shining. And what's happening in Canada? Like how many mines are actually coming online? How much is being fast-tracked? How much? Like I was in the industry and I have friends, like I don't see the financings. I don't see anything moving. Nothing is moving. It's just slow as it goes. Like we should be fast-tracking everything, as getting as much of this to the market as fast as possible. This is sunshine for the mining segment, and the junior resource sector in Canada has been choked off from capital, for environmental things, all kinds of things, choked off. And you need to get the exploration going before you can build mine. You know what I mean? There's juniors exploration, and then you get a deposit. I mean, a discovery, then a deposit, and then you get into these mid-tier producers, and then you get into these seniors. It's basically all choked off, and that's years to get things moving. and nothing's moving. Here's what's happening though. Here's an announcement of another mine closure here in Canada.
When we export and build more, incomes go up and life becomes more affordable. Will you support it, Prime Minister? We voted for Bill C-5 so the Prime Minister could approve projects quickly, but nothing has changed. I was in Yellowknife last week. Diamond mines used to be 20% of NWT's GDP. Only 2 mines are left and 1 will close in March. 1,600 resource-related jobs have been lost in the last 10 years. But our Canadian Sovereignty Act will repeal federal blocks and penalties to development and reward territories and provinces, businesses and workers who build and invest right here in Canada. When we export and build more, incomes go up and life becomes more affordable. Will you support it, Prime Minister?
Mr. Speaker, Canada has one of the most vibrant, important, imposing mining sectors in the world. Toronto is one of the most important mining finance centers in the world. The Build Canada Act will permit us to accelerate work on mines like Crawford, on mines like and on LNG projects, and on critical minerals.
That's good. That's good. You notice that he couldn't think of another mine to say, so he come up with LNG. I'm telling you that LNG is not a mine. Just so you know, Steve, LNG is not a mine, Steve. You know, if you're going to talk about it, just like here, copper, $5.92. I never thought I'd see price of copper. Nickel, when I was working on the copper nickel mine, I think it was under $3. Nickel, $8.34. These are American prices. These are USD. Aluminum, $147. Zinc, $151. Lead, uranium, 88 a pound. And then where is it? Where is it? Like, where's the yes, the TSX is up. Yes, the TSX is up. But you know where most of those mines are on the TSX? You know where they are? Not in Canada. A lot of those TSX listed companies have mines in other countries. B2 Gold. B2 Gold. Big miner, like a mid-tier miner. I don't believe it has any Canadian mines. I interviewed Clive Beddoes, the CEO. I don't believe that, unless they bought one recently, they don't have any Canadian mines. So this is the lie that they perpetuate here. They tell you stories without even having any knowledge. He couldn't even name 2 different mining companies. He couldn't even come up, so he names LNG. This is what they know. Absolutely nothing other than gaslighting. Like, I mean, it's easy to tell. Look at the financing. Look what's going on. I interviewed a CEO of a mining company here just recently, and they have projects in BC, Nevada, and Alaska, or Mexico, I should say. And the projects they're working on, Nevada, because they're fast-tracking them there. The one that we highlighted in Alaska, the Americans are building a 200-mile road for them. They're paying the road, and the mine can pay it back in toll fees when they're using the road to transport ore. I asked Brenda Bailey, the finance minister in BC here, if they would do the same thing. And she said, of course they will. And that's 6 months ago. I don't see any, of course they will. I don't see anything. Show me. Like, show us the results. Show us. Like they say from Missouri, the show me state. Show me some stuff. Show it. Maybe even come up with a name, like a second name for a mining company here in Canada. Just come up with another name.
It's remarkable, isn't it? But I mean, people often contrast Western countries, the leadership, with China's in particular. Because if you look at the biographies of lots of senior people in the Chinese Communist Party, they're all bloody scientists and engineers. Like Xi Jinping, I believe, is a chemical engineer. And it starts from the top and it goes down. They all understand stuff like this. Whereas Steve McKinnon, I mean, his resume might as well just say unemployed. He was a consultant, like a business consultant or something like that. He doesn't bloody know anything. All he knows is this. Being this guy, that's all he knows. And the rest of them, by and large, are lawyers, really, aren't they? I mean, that's why they were so impressed by Mark Carney, because it's like, wow, like, he can do math. Like, he knows numbers. It's like, whoa, because none of them can do anything. And it's kind of, obviously, I'm not saying that we should have the Chinese system here, but I don't think it's a coincidence that the Chinese are the top boys in basically everything to do with mining, engineering, building, all the rest of it. And their leadership is full of people that know how that kind of thing works.
We did this to ourselves as well. For, you know, like the past 10 years, we choked off mining exploration. We choked it all off because you just can't, like, it takes 2 years to get a drill permit for exploration. Think about that. Like, you don't just punch one hole and say that's a mine. You got to delineate the mine. I mean, it takes a lot of years to just delineate a deposit. And it's all been choked off. The junior resource sector in Canada has been choked off. And here's the time for it to shine. And the guy here is standing up in the House of Commons, can't even name a second mine, and he actually names an LNG deposit. That alone tells you how much they know about what they're talking about. This, I've never seen a resource sector.
I don't know how exploration works. You're the Premier of British Columbia. Yeah. You know, why don't you go next door and ask Danielle Smith how it is that she became an expert in oil? Because she really is. She knows her onions when it comes to oil. She knows oil inside out. When it comes to David Eby, doesn't know the first thing about mining, despite that being so crucial to the BC economy.
The two #1 industries in BC were mining and forestry. And we're going to talk about forestry later. But mining, again, he doesn't, you know what I mean? Like, the Canadians have some of the best miners, for sure, like the technology, some of the best people, and I've worked with a lot of them. And some of the best financing used to be for, but they're not here in Canada. They're exploring and mining other places in the world. Because of why? The answer is right there in front of you, right there. It's the House of Commons. That's the reason. There you go. Let's listen to Tim, the touter. Let's listen to him walk some stuff back here.
Canada used to provide 98% of its energy to one customer. We are committed to diversifying our supply. We see the opportunity to work with India, as was said, to the fastest growing demand for energy in the world will be in India, whether it's LNG, LPG, uranium, where we have the world's largest supplies of uranium. We made a mistake. We relied on one supplier for natural gas.
That's good. Yeah, you made a mistake. Yeah, you made a mistake. You're still making mistakes because you haven't done anything about the mistakes. You haven't removed C-48. You haven't moved C-69. And you haven't improved a pipeline in 10 months. Yeah, you made a mistake. You continue to make mistakes. All you're doing is touting. The one that you bragged about that has moved to Canada is Carbon Capture USA and another carbon capture company, which do little to generate energy. They basically bleed energy. They take a little. It's a taxation scheme. That's what you're bragging about. That's this new climate agenda stuff that's coming to Canada. And again, yesterday he was touting about conventional oil getting to India, and we said how. You said albatross. You said they were going to send it by albatross. I'm not sure how they were going to get it there, but he's changed his tune. He isn't putting that in there anymore, right? So they have figured that out. Somebody probably said to him, Tim, how are we going to get the oil to India? Like, well, how do we get it there? There's a guy on the really big show that says you can use albatrosses, but I don't know if we have any.
Right. Look into it. Get a working group. Go.
A committee. Strike a committee. Thank you to Please Doge for the
thank you, Doge.
The contribution. We're very appreciative. And again, if you could share this on your Facebook, that'd be super appreciated again. But here, climate change is still real for the most of the world has walked away from it. The climate agenda, other than the Liberals here, and this university, the University of Montreal Engineering School, Polytechnique, removed beef from the cafeteria menu to cut emissions. Now there's a virtue. Get a gold star for Polytechnique right there. Somebody call them up, give them a gold star for what they've done in saving the planet.
I was reading the comments. I think it was this actual tweet. I was reading the some of the Quebecois comments. It was very funny. People having arguments, and somebody was saying, "Are you going to start making bread with cricket flour and things like that?" They've got a sense of humor, our Quebec cousins. But I mean, just purely a gesture, as usual, with almost everything that happens in this.
Make sure Montreal Engineering Polytechnique that you put that on your X handle, where you put all your flags and different things on there, so that you make sure that you let everybody know that you've done your bit to save the world. China.
Isn't it just crazy? I mean, it's also quite a good way as well to save money, isn't it? Right now, just so happens to coincidentally be a time where beef is extremely expensive. So why not just give in and pretend that it's actually for the environment or something like that?
There's China. They, the liberals are touting now that China is worried about the climate. China has added more capacity in a year than most countries have in a total. They've added that because they recognize that energy is everything and AI eats a lot of it. China is actually kicking everybody's butt in energy. And like Ian said, they would literally make 1 million people ride a bicycle or burn the earth that they're standing on so that they can generate energy. And the rest of these countries here have basically suppressed their energy for a climate agenda. Look at, like Germany. I mean, what the Germans did, now they're losing factories. Mercedes is moving to Hungary from Germany because they can't access affordable energy.
And the Chinese, they are like, they are quite amazing as well, I must say. You've got to credit what they've done with energy, like hydro, especially. Like the Three Gorges Dam, which I think is something like, it's 22.5 gigawatts. Kind of insane, really. That's like, that's what, something like 25 million homes in China, something like that, powered by that one dam. And obviously as well, coal, they go crazy for coal, and solar. And they're often praised, and wind a little bit, less so wind, but they're often praised for all their solar and wind. But nobody ever seems, and also EV adoption, but nobody ever seems to ask the question, like, why is that? Like, what is there a way that could be in their interests? Chin rub. And the answer is yes, because China famously, notoriously, doesn't have enough fossil fuels within its borders to fuel its own economy. It's one of its biggest weaknesses, if not its number one weakness, other than being ruled by geriatric communists. So if they want more energy, unlike, say, the Canadians, they have to do things like solar panels because they don't have any other choice. They can't just invent oil and gas out of thin air. Whereas Canada, and particularly Alberta, sitting on this gigantic ocean of oil that we could access.
Trillions of dollars.
Yeah, that's the difference. We have that. The Americans too, to an extent, they have these fossil fuels. The Chinese don't. They don't have enough oil for their own economy. So it's actually very much in their own self-interest. You have to bear in mind that China is trying to achieve a kind of autarky. It's trying to achieve a system where it's entirely self-reliant. It can't do that with fossil fuels. Lo and behold, they're the world leaders in solar panels and wind turbines. Who'd have thought?
Sajika says her mission is to save Canada. That's ours too. And it starts with accountability. If we don't have accountability, we don't have anything. These people that say we got to quit highlighting all the negative stuff and the stuff that the liberals are doing wrong. How do we get better? So you're okay with fraud, waste, corruption, abuse? We're going to show you a lot of it here in a couple seconds. Fraud, waste, corruption, abuse of the taxpayer. That's the taxpayer. When you set the table for your family and the taxman comes in and takes half of it off the table and then says they want more while your family goes hungry, we want to just keep going with that? We don't. So we want to save Canada for Canadians, not for the elite. Not for the elite.
That's so patriotic. Charles McDonald back in with sausage roll money. What a guy. He's our #1 sausage roll supplier, I would say.
Thank you, Charles. So here they go. The cabinet is developing a new auto policy. The Prime Minister granted after they granted the Chinese car makers broad access to the battery electric vehicle market. The Department of Finance had accused Chinese of predatory trade practices. They had accused them of that, and everybody else in the world, basically. There's an auto strategy coming, and I think it's going to be really important. That's from none other than Liberal MP Karina Gold, who took a run at the leadership for the nation here. Remember that? And she also famously tweeted to landlock. She wanted to get all the other MPs to landlock Alberta's resources. She has got to be one of the most anti-energy MPs out there.
By the way, who's Mark Carney talking to there? Look at that shadow Is that Nosferatu or something? What is that?
It looks like an Alfred Hitchcock movie, eh? It could be they're just letting us see actually how bad it is. There's an alien he's talking to, and they're getting orders from it. That's right.
Yeah. Yes, my lord.
And there's 500,000 people that work in the auto sector in Canada. And Flip Flop Ford says that he's worried about those jobs. Remember, this one is just so confusing. They're going to bring EVs. We're going to have this free trade deal with China. Then they backpedaled on it. Said it's only 49,000. We're only going to let in a few. It's not. They're not going to manufacture here. It's going to be really small. And then Flip Flop Ford got all angry. And then all of a sudden he says, "Oh, we're going to start manufacturing Chinese EVs in Canada." It's like you can't even keep up. Nobody knows what they're talking about. Nobody knows. So,
but it's also just a flip on a dime. How can you trust anything that somebody like that says? If they change their tune, literally in the space of 24 hours, how can you trust somebody like that? I'm like, that's a very serious thing. What does he actually stand for?
Are they going to go back to the EV rebates as well? So they're going to bring in the Chinese EVs, which are cheaper than Canadian made or American made cars. And then they're going to give them EV rebates so that they can compete even better against the auto manufacturers here that have employ the 500,000 people. Is that what's coming? Is that what you can expect? Have those 500,000 people got to be rubbing their chin and saying like, this doesn't smell very good. But, you know, the media will paint it as a, you know, a great thing and, you know, how you should be so happy. Karina Gold will make sure that you get looked after. $885 billion for migrant Medicare last year. $885 million. And that's for counseling, nursing, home visits, transportation, eyeglasses, and other supplemental health service for illegal immigrants. That's not for like going to the hospital and that. That's just for the Medicare, right? Expenses tabled in Parliament followed a Commons Health Committee vote to audit the $885 million. A total of $462 million was spent on supplemental medical costs. That includes vision care, counseling, assisted devices, home visits, nursing homes, transportation, taxes, and other supplemental services such as physiotherapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, interpretation, and translation devices. Other expenses include $327 million for basic health services like prescriptions. This is like your Blue Cross or your Extended Health, right? $34 million for medical exams and $33 million for admin. Who's ever doing these admin things is making like a bandit because like $473 million to administer the dental program in Canada for 2 years. $473 million.
Always the same, isn't it?
$25 million for pre-departure medical services and $2 million for oversight charges. Oh my God.
It's mad. Physiotherapy, like occupational therapy. I mean, look, I mean, obviously,
but listen to this. Wait, we got this is the best part.
Human beings, and they deserve respect and dignity. But
this is the best part.
Why would we pay for that?
Like people voted against this. The Health Committee voted 5-4 to investigate program spending. So there was actually 4 people that voted against investigating this. This is what Steve McKinnon doesn't want: transparency. Why should you look at what they spent the money on? That's just delaying their progress, right? That's just delaying it. So it's because right now the NDP is not sitting in committee. Because if the NDP was there, we wouldn't get to look at it. Because that's what it was like when Jagmeet and Justin were there. You didn't get to see any of it because there's no NDP. They're not actually in it. They don't have official party status. So it's the Liberals, the Bloc, and the Conservatives, and the Liberals now have to get stuff passed. Now they have to be, can get investigated. What my question is, why haven't we brought back that green scheme thing and said, let's have a look at those documents? Still no answer to that. CBC busy, obviously, on TDS stories.
Yeah, I mean, Minneapolis, man. That's why you look at Canadian public broadcaster news, don't you? To learn about Minneapolis. That's why I go there. You did, but you should have read the line here, because it was the Liberal MPs, obviously, that didn't want to do this. They didn't want this audit.
No.
And then the quote here from what's his name, Marcus Pawlowski, who says, "We're going at this conservative notion. wasting money, the conservative notion that we're wasting money on these foreigners who are coming in here and using our health services. And then he goes on to say, trying to parody the conservatives, saying there's too many foreigners. We're spending Canadian dollars on foreigners. Is that accurate, my lord? Is that what the conservatives are saying? Is it xenophobia? Do you think the Conservative Party of Canada is xenophobic? Have you opened your eyes lately? Have you listened to the Conservative Party of Canada lately? Have you looked at what they are now? And you're accusing them of being xenophobic because they don't think it's a good... it's not even that. It's because they think it is a good idea to audit nearly $1 billion of taxpayers' money being spent on people who are in Canada illegally. That level of political discourse is so low. You know, it's
we got that talking point from Mark Miller.
It's underneath the sewer. It's just completely pointless. It's pointless to even listen to people like this. It's just pure contempt for the Canadian citizen.
They would have got that talking point from Mark Miller when he was asked about immigration driving up the cost of rents, and he said, called the reporter a racist. That's what you get in Canada. Independent journalism is treated like the plague here, while the government corrupted and crippled media basically are just nothing but other than megaphones for them. And that's their shield. That's their shield. That has to be taken away. Post our stuff underneath all CBC stories you see too, everywhere. Just post it everywhere. Call them out. Get this out to as many people as you can, because these stories don't get out there. War refugees paid $839 million. Cash grants to Ukraine, war refugees cost taxpayers $839 million, and that's from the Department of Immigration. Ukrainians offer free flights from the war zone, $3,000 per adult, $1,500 per minor child on landing. A total of almost 300,000 individuals received this assistance, and that's from an inquiry of ministry tabled in the comments. Other expenses included $102 million.
Money, by the way.
What's that?
It's literally it's just almost precisely the same sum of money. $839 million. The previous one was $885 million. It's just like, is that the range they like? Just about $1 billion, but not quite $1 billion.
Other expenses included $102 million for free hotels, $87 million for settlement costs, $16 million for Canada-Ukraine Transition Assistance Initiative. If you have lots of words, it's easy to do, right? For a total of $1.14 billion. Figures were tabled. With regard to the approximately $20 billion in funding that was committed to Ukraine since 2022 by the government. And that is the money that Chrystia Freeland is there now, helping dole out or decide on how it gets spent with zero oversight. Zero. You don't get to know where that money goes. You don't get to know. You don't deserve to know.
She knows where it came from, and now she is going to know where it's going to go. She's been like sitting on that money like a missile flying through the sky. She was there when it launched, and she's going to be there when it explodes.
Like a squirrel, she was stacking away the nuts there. She was just stacking them away there. And then just like when she had enough nuts in the bag, she left with the nuts, I guess. Here's one that's got to make...
I don't think we gave a shout out to Bronson there. Bronson Wally.
Thank you, Bronson. The Fed's tree scheme cost only almost $500 million. So like half of that, right? So the cabinet's $2 billion tree programs cost nearly $500 million. That's Justin Trudeau's big program, right? It was wrapped up last November. And it delivered 11% of the trees that it promised. It delivered 11% of the trees that it promised. It delivered, again, say that one more time, it delivered 11% of the trees it promised. Expenses totaled, though, $487 million, $891,090, right down to the penny almost, right? The program ended prematurely. The Department of Natural Resources wrote expenses include $44 million. Here's another one. $44 million for administrative costs. I would have counted those trees. I'd have counted those trees by hand.
50 employees assigned to run the program and $44.6 million. What? It's like nearly $1 million each. Is that how it was working? Nice.
And
but also, can we just ask a question? How can you fail to plant trees? Like, come on.
You can basically...
We've been doing that. We've been doing that for about 30,000 years at least as a species.
You could literally throw seeds out of a helicopter.
Yeah, I'll give them to the birds. Give them to the albatrosses.
The environment minister at the time there, Catherine McKenna, announced the program in 2019. Trees are a huge asset, providing shading and cooling. Shading and cooling. Our party's commitment is to tree planting as an opportunity to get more trees planted where they're needed most. They promised to plant 2 billion trees within 10 years. Achieving the target would have cost $5.9 billion according to the budget. Trees plant themselves as well. Do you know that? Trees literally plant themselves. You know all the trees that are out there right now? They planted themselves. It's amazing the Liberals didn't take credit for those. Well, we planted some by hand, but then Mother Nature, we're counting those. Trees literally plant themselves.
Good times.
We talked about Gary. Gary, fool of the day yesterday. And you got another non-participant. Here's the Newfoundlanders now saying, thanks, Gary, but no thanks. Let's listen to the Newfoundlanders here.
Great news today from the province of Newfoundland and Labrador. Premier Tony Wakeham came out today and confirmed that Newfoundland and Labrador will not participate in the federal gun buyback program. And I just wanted to read the couple of statements that came out on the press release. As Premier, I call on the federal government to further engage provinces and territories on this issue.
That's good.
And
we don't need to play the whole clip there. So joining Newfoundland or, adding to that, Alberta, no go. Saskatchewan, no go. Wab Canoe from Manitoba, remember he was grilled by that reporter, activist. That activist was grilling him there in Manitoba. We showed that a couple days ago. Ontario, no go. New Brunswick, no go. Northwest Territories, no go. Yukon, no go. Who's left?
What was the bloody point?
Hey?
Ontario, Alberta, Saskatchewan, these are... Surely, if you were trying to actually do this policy for real, you would really want those provinces, wouldn't you?
Three-quarters of $1 billion taxpayer money being wasted with Gary and the Sangria, who actually had that leaked phone call, said he didn't even believe in the program and that he would make his tenant whole. Basically, he was going to break the law for his tenant. And still has his job, though. Still has his job. And then how much of this money could actually go to our ports and stop the real crime that's coming in, the guns, the sea cans? When I interviewed a former RCMP member, said that's where it's coming in. We inspect about 3 to 5% of the sea cans that are coming in, trains and all that. Drugs and guns come in through there. But we're going to waste $750 million for Quebec.
And also, we have to, such is the madness, we have to explain and we have to remind ourselves why this was done in the first place. And it was because of that psychopath in Nova Scotia who went and killed a lot of people with guns that he had illegally. So the law was already in place. He already shouldn't have had those guns. So it was an enforcement problem, if anything, and mental health and all the rest of it. So the law just, on the face of it, prima facie, does not make sense. And now it's not even going to be enforced. The minister whose job it is to, create this policy and see it implemented doesn't believe in it, doesn't even believe in the, law and order in general, the rule of law, apparently, because he was willing to subvert the law for his friends. I mean, come on. What a waste of time, waste of money. But it's something that the Liberals can chirp on about when they're campaigning in Montreal. And that's everything to the Liberal Party, isn't it?
They could waste more time or maybe spend more time going after Melanie Joly. Those comments she made in committee there, where she said the world is a more dangerous place and the Liberals need more power to deal with problems when they abuse power and privilege already by invoking the Emergencies Act. She wants more power, claiming the world is a more dangerous place. The power she's asking for deals with Canadians. So is it the world a more dangerous place? Is Canada a more dangerous place? And aren't you responsible for Canada and the crime and stuff like that? So you want more power to get anybody that dissents against the Liberal Party? Is that what you want for this January 31st report protest? Are we getting the horses ready? Are we saddling them up? Are we getting ready for them? Is that the deal or what?
Yeah. The cavalry are coming.
And here's another waste of money. Like how much waste? Like CBC won't do these stories, but here the Ostrich cull there. A government agency spent more than $6.7 million to off these birds.
Mad, eh? The Americans offered to take them. Should have just let the Americans fly a Chinook in and take them all away, or whatever it was.
I'm serious. The media in Canada is what shields the Liberals from accountability. We need to defund the CBC. The CBC must be defunded if we want a free and democratic Canada. That is the first thing that needs to be done. We need to defund them because they are shielding the Liberals from accountability. And that goes for the other media.
Your money.
Your money. They're using your money to block democracy here in Canada.
It's not a voluntary withdrawal contribution.
What's that?
It's involuntary.
Gene-edited pigs considered safe by Health Canada, but shh, not going to tell you about it. Just going to give it to you, right? So the food professor putting us a gene-edited and cloned food products should be clearly labeled because they're not because they're unsafe, but just because they're being transparent. Once again, without public notice or meaningful explanation, Health Canada has cleared a food technology that remains poorly understood for consumers, and the agency approved the sale of gene-edited pork in Canada without any labeling. Eat up. Hey, eat up.
I'm sure it's fine. I mean, there is a lot of gene-edited food out there, isn't there?
But if it's so good, just put the label on it.
It's the lack of transparency.
If it's so good, just put the label on it. It's easy, isn't it?
Yeah. It's the usual, though, isn't it? It's that opacity.
That was like, it reminds me of
so familiar with it at this point. We're just so like inured.
It reminds me of a Homer Simpson episode where they're just like, they next to the nuclear plant there, and they got fish with like 5 eyes, and they're, like Mr. Burns is there saying, it's fine. It's fine. It's actually, you're getting more eyes. It's absolutely fine. Yeah, they tried this with beef just last month, didn't they? But they had to back off, but now they're trying it with pork. This is going to be Bill Gates in the background doing this stuff, eh? I don't know.
I mean, we do. It's worth highlighting that, like a lot of almost every crop really that's grown at scale in Canada is
GMOs,
modified, genetically modified, including canola, isn't it? That's modified. So I mean,
well, here's a tip.
FYI, this isn't particularly uncommon.
I think most people,
as Sylvain Chalbois says here, it's just why be so secretive all the time?
Here's a tip. A lot of people aren't eating seed oils anymore. Butter, good old butter. Butter's better. Butter. You can make it at home with whipped cream too. You can make your own butter.
And what is it that RFK does when he was like cooking that turkey? Is that fat?
Yeah,
he just like boils it in a drum of fat.
Yeah. This guy's Ron Butler. He's plug your ears if you don't like the F-bomb, because Ron Butler, I think this is part of his shtick, but he's the mortgage guy in Ontario, and he's got lots to say. So we're just going to play a little clip here. None of it's verified, but I mean, he's usually pretty good though.
I analyze a story, give comment on a story, and I think, okay, well, I've said everything I could say, and then boom, some new insanity. Fuck, it hits hard, okay? It hits, and it hit my friend Dan Fosh. He published a note about student housing. Student visas, foreign student visas, are down 97%. 97%, you just might as well say closed. I mean, 97% down from the high, 23-24. From the high, down 97%. Well, that tells you all the student housing rental investment play, Ontario, British Columbia, toast, gone.
That's good. That's good. That's good.
Finished.
I mean, that's part of the problem in Toronto right now. All those tiny condos, those tiny 300 square foot condos, that they were all bought for like student housing and migrants and immigrants and all that stuff. And as they cut back on that's what created that. I mean, And then a lot of people are trying to get out of it. Now the property values are falling and there's lawsuits. It's just a mess. It's an absolute mess. And the same thing's going on in Vancouver. Absolute mess.
Yeah, but this is because the immigration is the only way in Canada now to increase or decrease, if you want to, the population. That tap, turn it on, turn it off.
Oh.
That's the only way to change the numbers really of people in Canada, because the birth rate has collapsed to the point of not even being a significant player anymore in terms of the population. If the population, if you turn off immigration, population declines. If you turn it on, obviously you can grow as fast as you want. And in that sort of bizarre, unprecedented, weird situation, real estate is one of the kind of one of the earliest alarm bells, isn't it? So as soon as you turn the tap off, I mean, the Liberals haven't turned it off, but they've, turned it down a little bit. Now real estate's on fire, isn't it? So that makes you think. Lots of people have
on a bad fire.
Is it trillion? Is it trillions of dollars in real estate in this country, or invested?
That's where most wealth is. Yeah, most wealth is in real estate.
If those people got their representatives into power, one of the first things that they're going to ask for, surely, is why don't you just turn that tap a little bit further along?
And the other thing is this stat here. Most Canadians have been convinced, especially young women, one from cost and the other from climate agenda, not to have children. And it says here, this stat, nearly 95% of women in the age of 20 and 29 who have college or university education have 0 children. Because, I mean, one, they can't afford it. 2, they've been convinced that they shouldn't have children.
I was looking at that statistic yesterday or the day before. I could not believe that statistic. I couldn't get my head around that statistic. And I had to go and look on Statistics Canada to see that it is in fact true. What the hell?
Yeah, they've been convinced. They've been convinced.
Seriously weird. Seriously, we're in uncharted territory here.
Don't send your child off to university if you want them to have children, because they'll be convinced that they shouldn't have one.
But in general, and the thing is, a lot of people, I think a lot of people are relieved somewhat. It helps them deal with the situation of declining birth rates to think that it's a choice or something, or it's the universities, or it's XYZ, it's the TV or something like that. That doesn't appear to be the case, because in countries where none of this stuff is going on, like Thailand and North Africa and places like India, it's collapsing. Turkey is another one. The birth rates are collapsing everywhere on the planet. The West is just, and East Asia are just, ahead of the other countries. But it's universal. I mean, it's one of those areas where I think it's worth giving credit to Elon Musk, because he is literally one of the only people that ever bangs the drum for this, for how much of a concern this is. And it really is.
He bangs more than a drum, because I think he's got 11 kids or something. That was a bad joke.
Banging summit.
Canada's population could be 75 million. That's close to almost double by 2075. Alberta could leapfrog BC by 2038. That's from StatsCan. They're saying that agency reckons the 2075 population could be 44 million in low growth, 57 million medium growth, 75 million high growth. And since the Liberals moderated their policy on extraordinarily high immigration, which is the only thing that increases Canada population, which is what you just said, since fertility rate extremely low, that's now fallen by 10 million. So again, maybe put some incentives. Many countries right now have big incentives for people to have children. We need to go back to that.
Well, Hungary is one of the most famous ones, and yet their birth rate is not great. Russia's another one, yeah. France's birth rate is a little bit better. But the thing is, that seems to have a little bit of an effect, but it's not fixing the problem. It's such a deeply entrenched problem. But that is, I just thought that was amazing. Statistics Canada, in their most recent prediction before this one, they predicted 87.2 million people in Canada was possible in the high growth scenario by 2075. Then the Liberals just tinkered a little bit they just turned the tap a little bit, didn't they? And now it's down to 75.8 million. So it's like a 12 million person reduction. That's how much power the government has, the federal government. Think of it that way. In terms of control, they have control, almost near total control over the population of Canada, like how big it is or how small it is. That's so strange, because obviously throughout history, that's not been something that a government can decide. The king can't be in every family's bedroom. You know, usually that was a natural thing that would occur. But now it's literally that's their prerogative. That's their bailiwick. They can decide whether Canada has 150 million people or whether Canada has 20 million people. That is in the power of the government.
We're going to pick up some speed here because we got about 30 minutes left here. We played this yesterday, but that Alberta, we're going to play a little clip here. The Alberta separatist movement is gathering quite a bit of momentum for sure. And we'll just show you a small clip of this here, because I think we showed it to you yesterday here too, right? But that's good. That's good. We saw the room there. Somebody actually pulled the fire alarm in the room there. And nobody left, though, because they pulled the fire alarm, because obviously there was an activist in there that wanted them to clear the room. Anything,
you can't
right?
fool the Albertans.
Yeah, they're just like, rather burn. Katy Perry has jumped into the soup pot there. She's actually gone all anti-ICE. She's told 200 million of her followers, how many of those are bots, to contact their U.S. senator to block funding for ICE. And that's Justice. There's been accusations recently on the Minnesota thing that it's connections to Canada. Is Justin Trudeau, and then there's accusations that the CBC is being affected by the Democratic Party of the United States. Is there cross-border influence on our elections? When they accuse the Republicans of infecting the Conservatives, is it actually the Democrats affecting the Liberals? Is there? When the Obama recommended or came out and endorsed Justin Trudeau, remember that?
Mm-hmm.
But you know, when if Trump ever dared to do that, that would be all hell to pay, right?
Well, also, I mean, they've interfered in a lot of ways, haven't they? During Brexit as well, Barack Obama interfered in the Brexit referendum. Like, why he thought that was any of his business, I don't know, but kind of got away with it, at least in terms of what his own team thought.
But here's even the BC Attorney General now getting tied up with the BC Green Party there, Emily Lowen, yesterday. She's echoing some of the rhetoric from that progressive activist and saying that by urging Canadian firms to think about their role before doing business with U.S. government immigration. CBC has been doing it. CBC highlights companies that do work with ICE. CTV has done it. Like, what? So are CBC and CTV basically activists as well? Is that what they're doing? Trying to undermine the United States government?
But also what they're doing is almost like an attempt to get people fired in places like Quebec, because they've sold vehicles to the US government that the US government will use it to enforce its immigration laws. And now they're like calling it out, like, and this company in Quebec sold 50 of these vehicles. It's like, you do realize if you succeed in getting that killed, that will be unemployed people. That will be less money in Canada. It will be bad for the Canadian economy. And all because you don't think we should sell things to the American government.
I'm gonna agree with Kelsey here. I wish Canada had a fast forward button as well. But how far do we have to go? Do you know what I mean? How far do we have to go before we find democracy again here in Canada, where there's not a threat to democracy? And I believe that an independent media is our only hope, because the media, which is supposed to be the watchdog, and they do a really good job in the United States, they do a good job in the UK of holding power to account, but it's abysmal here. And they don't even provide access here. They control access as well as crippled the media. They control access here in Canada as well.
Big time.
This story has got no legs either. This is what, again, this Telesat thing where, you know, it's basically going insolvent here, and some $2 billion of Canadian taxpayer money seems to have wandered away as well. And nothing. Just Andy Lee, an independent journalist, is kind of trying to bring some light to it. We'll put a little spark on it, but like, you know what I mean? Like, CBC can't be bothered because they're so busy in Minnesota.
Something's happening in Minnesota, guys. The Attorney General of the United States is going to say something.
We got a little bit of...
No, it's Scott Bessent as well. It's all about America all the time in CBC world, isn't it?
We got a little bit from BC here.
Coming to you live from the Now Media Newsroom.
Surrey is sounding the alarm. They say the city has lost control. Well, let's listen to the mayor here.
And Surrey City Council is calling on Ottawa to declare the extortion crisis in Surrey a federal emergency. Mayor Brenda Locke brought forward the motion at a public hearing at City Hall last night, saying the crime and violence has escalated beyond local law enforcement's ability to respond.
We have to take a look at an awful lot of things to make sure we're doing this in a very holistic way, because this is absolutely just causing extreme concern, fear, and as has noted, alleged retaliation, and that is going to take us to another place.
So far this year,
good.
Surrey has
that's good. So is BC, is Surrey not set to become Mexico, where we're more worried about the gangs than we are protection from police? I mean, this revolving door, all these things, like, you know, and then the Liberals blaming the Conservatives for, I mean, how long have they had for this, you know, this problem, this revolving door? The mayor here in Kelowna sent that letter. We have, you know, like, it's in almost every city, it repeats itself. Like, you know, 15 individuals responsible for most of the crime, and they just get a revolving door. Literally, the guy that the letter said, 32 failures to appear, yet he gets to go out again. And the question is, how many failures to appear before he's held for his next court date? How many failures to appear? The judge has to look at that and say, 32 failures to appear. Yeah, that's fine. Go ahead. Your court date is that day. You know you're not going to come anyway. So the next time you get arrested and come before me, I'll give you another one of those free passes. Like, how many? How many? It's a good question.
It's just, it's not how it was intended, was it? The justice system when it was set up. It's such an abuse of the idea of the legal system.
These same people will stand up there and tell you this like this all over the world, and Melanie Joly say, well, they'll need tougher measures to control people. Again, go to Tokyo, the largest city in the world. None of this is going on. How are they doing it? Maybe somebody should just buy some, maybe that's a good spend. Just buy some airfare to Tokyo. Just walk around, have a look. It's more bad news for BC. Let's listen to Aaron Gunn here.
Island, the Powell River.
Mr. Speaker, last week was a devastating one for forestry workers and their families on Vancouver Island. Just outside Port McNeill, the Atlee chip plant announced it would be permanently closed. Curtailments announced in Ladysmith and Saltaire, and at the iconic Chemainus sawmill where my grandfather worked for 20 years. These were good-paying jobs, the type that built communities up and down Vancouver Island and right across BC. This government promised to stand with these workers, to have their backs. Instead, mills keep on closing, workers laid off. When will this government's actions and results finally live up to its rhetoric and its words?
Hear, hear. That's good. That's good. I interviewed the mayor of can't remember where the Domtar mill is closing. It's
well, it's like loads of different villages and towns.
North Cowichan, I think Cowichan, North Cowichan, yeah. I think it is the mayor of North Cowichan. And, you know, we talked about the Chemainus mill and all that stuff too. And devastating for that community because those are good paying jobs. Those are like, you know, jobs where people pay mortgages, you know, buy trucks and build families. And
well, as he says here, as Herman Bangu says, keep towns alive. That is it.
I mean, those towns are built around a resource. I mean, that's the thing. Most of Canada, other than the major cities now, they're started because of a resource. Like, you don't start high-level Alberta because it was a great place to pull over in 40 below. It started because of the oil and gas and started because of the sawmill there. And the same thing goes for Prince George, Fort St. John. I mean, go on and on, Dawson Creek, Kitimat. All these places didn't start because they're just like great places for the weather. Thompson, Manitoba, Inco, mine, right? Flin Flon, Manitoba, nickel mine. I mean, like, they start because of industry. Where was Shania Twain born? Timmins, Ontario. Timmins, Ontario. Right. Big mining town. Timmins.
And, what's his name? Alex Trebek. He was born in Sudbury, I believe, wasn't he?
Another big mining town. Mining. But if you gut all the resource sector, that's why most of the rural. And then I remember having a discussion with one of our reporters here, and he said that the people that live in, because he was slagging, because most of the people in rural communities or rural Canada vote blue. And he said it's because they have a low IQ. I said, you mean the people that mine your stuff, that log the trees and do all the work here? Those are the low IQ people. I think they might have a low IQ because they're bringing food to you, because you don't deserve any for saying that. But
contaminated. The transaction contaminates them.
So the people that live in the cities are the smart ones, according to people like him. And then the people in the rural communities, the blue collar people, deserve what they get. Apparently, they're getting what they get. Because it is true that the metropolitan areas decide for the nation, do they not?
Especially the ones that speak French.
Yeah, sadly. We got some international news here. We don't have much left, so we'll be quick here.
Coming to you live from the Now Media Newsroom.
Again, help us share, get this out to as many people as possible. Put it on every Facebook post you can find. Just share it, spam it out there. That would be very, very helpful. Like, share, subscribe. We'd appreciate that. International news. Oil prices rise a little bit as Trump says that Armada is on its way to Iran there. Let's listen to Trump here say that as well. He has a style for sure.
And by the way, there's another beautiful armada floating beautifully toward Iran right now. So we'll see. I hope they make a deal. I hope they make a deal. They should have made a deal the first time they'd have a country.
You know, Anita and will pontificate there and say, how much they're doing and that. Like, nobody's begging for Canada to come and rescue Iran. Do you know what I mean?
They're begging for a working group to be established.
A committee,
please.
right? A committee. Or they're waiting for Ursula von der Leyen's strongly worded letter that they're still working on that letter. How many thousands of people have died so far waiting for that letter, that strongly worded letter?
They're waiting for von der Leyen to make a speech about it and then completely contradict everything she says in the speech with her actions the following week. That's the von der Leyen method, isn't it?
And you and I have said this a million times as well, that the Navy is the most important thing in this modern world. And it's been the most important thing since the British Empire, the Spanish armadas or whatever. Like, I mean, Spain ruled a lot of the world with their navies, the English with the empire when they had it, it was their navy that was the big thing, right? And I think there's no challenge. What's that?
The Dutchies also had a go with their navy.
And the Viking in their boats. But there's no challenger to the American Navy at this point. There's nothing as big as the American Navy. So,
I mean, a lot of the war nerds, like the actual experts who I listen to from time to time or read from time to time, say quite often that even every single navy in the world combined would be knocked out by the US Navy within like a day or two. Like, that's how powerful it is. It's just, even though they have fewer ships now than the Chinese, the quality of their technology and, what they have is just unbeatable.
Yeah. It is what they use to control the seas. And you've said that many times when you said, Canadians are going to develop new trade routes and they're going to basically turn their back on America. Like, which Navy is going to protect them as they sail their ships across the ocean?
That's another thing. It was in his speech, in his massively overrated Davos speech, which everybody apparently, the whole intelligentsia, if you could call it that, in this country, thinks was like a great speech. Even Pierre Poilievre, like a very good speech. He mentioned in that speech sea lanes and freedom of navigation in the seas. But again, nobody, not even Mark Carney himself, has thought about the follow-on. What comes next after that? You've established that that's imperiled now, the freedom of sea lanes. Then what? If you're not best friends with America, then what? Who's going to protect your stuff when it goes across the oceans?
Yeah, kind of Canadian Spider-Man. I mean, I can show you some videos that say that the United States of America, based on its geography, its energy, and all of its technology, and that it'll be, in our lifetimes for sure, the last superpower we'll see. And I don't know what the future holds, but they have a big vision, and that big vision is space. And I think that is one of the things where they're talking about energy, they're talking about bases, they're talking about like space. Well, I remember when Trump introduced Space Force back in his first term. Everybody laughed at it and said that was ridiculous. Who needs a Space Force? Now all of a sudden they're just like, Space Force.
They made a parody movie about it, didn't they? I think it Steve Carell or somebody like that is in there. And yeah, I mean, it was just a no-brainer, obviously. I think it's just they didn't like the name, did they? But
and then
can you think of a better name? What's a better name? Star Force?
Satellite technology, satellites is everything, right? I mean, that's what actually, like I've talked to people from Ukraine, actually in the front lines, they say that Starlink actually gave them some footing because it gave them the ability to communicate. Because once you can shut off communication, if you can kill communication, you basically blind an army. You basically blind them. If you can kill, and that's what the Americans did when they went into Venezuela. They basically blinded everything. Like they flew how many ships in there? I think only one took some damage. I mean, they basically went into a fortress and went in there like bandits with I think it was 100+ aircraft and in and out. And out. But your friend, Keir Starmer, following Mark Carney, it seems like these guys got the same book, same speeches, same playbook. Mark Carney, Emmanuel Macron, and Keir Starmer, the three amigos, and sometimes they get joined by Albanese as well. But it's the three of them as the three amigos. That was a Steve Martin movie, I believe. But here's a little clip here from Keir as he comes down the plane to visit President Xi. It's the first time in 8 years a UK Prime Minister has been to China. Yes, no, maybe so, maybe. We're almost done here. That's good. That's good enough anyway.
I like how they got the tallest Chinese soldiers they could find to make Keir Starmer look like a tiny fellow.
I wonder if he took his burner phone with him because they've tapped.
Yeah,
we showed you that story the other day.
2 days after a story broke in Britain, I think it was 2 days ago, or recently, a story broke in Britain about how Operation Salt Typhoon that the Chinese have been running penetrated, to use Klaus Schwab's favorite word, the seat of government, 10 Downing Street in London, that they had access to the phones of people at the absolute heart of power.
But why not let them build? But why not let them build a super embassy right in downtown London as well? Maybe they can put a big tower up there.
Right next to the communications cables that are like one of the arteries of the financial system in London. Why not? Why not?
Why not? Also, hey, who cares?
Well, yeah, indeed. Who cares? I mean, there's so much about this that is just so weird. But also, a story yesterday came out from the same newspaper, actually, I think, The Telegraph, the ones that got that about the Chinese hacking their phones, found out that Keir Starmer helped give advice pro bono, that's for free if you don't speak Latin, gave legal advice or tried to assist in a legal case to prosecute British soldiers and harass British soldiers for things that they'd done in Afghanistan and Iraq, or I think actually it was just Iraq. So just to chase down British soldiers and persecute them and attempt to imprison them with these vexatious claims against them for what they did in Iraq. He's now the Prime Minister of the country who was bloody outraged about Donald Trump besmirching British troops. And then here's a story coming out that he was actually trying to contribute to them being prosecuted for doing what they didn't want to do, but were told to do by the government, which is go to Iraq and shoot people.
I don't know, between the three of them, I'm not sure which one's on the bottom rung there, but Keir Starmer's got to be in the running.
It's him.
He's got to be in the running for it, that's for sure. Russia war casualties, the Ukraine war casualties as high as 1.8 million. And then they say 1.2 of them could be Russians. And that just an absolute, Trump has said it many times, and most people don't want to listen to it because he says the same thing all the time, 8,000 a day or 8,000 a week. And he sees the pictures. But seems like CNN, when he says those things, they don't want to listen to that. They just want to go after like what's going on in Minnesota or something. I don't know.
I mean, as well, we were talking about we were sort of kind of talking about demographics earlier in the Canadian context about how Canadians don't have kids anymore. Immigration is the only source of people if you want new people now. Russia is so much worse even than Canada, and it's been suffering for so long. And to think that they've lost all these young men,
yeah.
I mean, Russia, like, people were already predicting that Russia would die, basically, just for lack of people, lack of human beings, even before this war. And now they've done this. I mean, if this is true, or if this is even close to accurate, the Russians, it's almost like they've blown their own head off. It's a tragedy for Russia as well as Ukraine.
We got 2 stories left, and we'll go quick here. We predicted it yesterday. Ian said it, that sure enough, Ian's prediction yesterday, here's Ursula confirming it. Let's listen in to Ursula von der Leyen.
Ventures. Finally, Prime Minister Narendra, we both know our greatest wealth are our people. That is why I'm so glad that we are signing an agreement on mobility. We will facilitate the movement of students, researchers, seasonal and highly skilled workers. And this is also why we are launching the first EU legal gateway office in India. It will be a one-stop hub to support Indian talent.
That's good.
Moving
That's good.
to Europe.
You get the idea. This reminds me of a Disney movie where you can pick the character that stares into the mirror, right?
All right. Yeah. I just think on a different note, how could you be so politically stupid, you know? And I guess to answer my own question, the answer to that is if you're an unelected giga bureaucrat, basically, which is what she is. She's not a politician really, because she doesn't depend on an electorate. She is just appointed by by the members of the European Commission, by the sort of, I think it's the foreign ministers of the EU members just appoint her. So she doesn't need to care about, oh, well, this will be bad for me at the polls. She doesn't need to care about that. So she does something that the European people don't want, which is introduce yet more migration.
Well, I can tell you, when this show hits the big time, I want to get my hair like that, and I want to speak like that, completely stone-faced and just like,
I want to get that jacket, whatever that is.
Completely stone-faced and just telling you that, we will do what we want to do and you will suck it up, because that's the way it is. But
I mean, as well, her demeanor, her haughtiness, the fact that she has a von in her name as well, and it's such a bad look, isn't it? They just don't seem to care, do they? It's like, we will do it.
And he's back. We had Justy in there, but if the old sidekick, those two could have their own comedy show. Maybe they should do a podcast. They should do something. Maybe they could probably come on with us. Maybe we should invite Jagmeet on. But listen, he likes, both of them like fighting, because remember, Justin Trudeau made a documentary about him boxing, and Jagmeet is like a jiu-jitsu fighter or something like that. But he actually used AI to speed this up because he wanted to look even tougher than he is. Let's just watch this here. That's good. So he's the new Apollo Creed, by the way. Maybe he could be the crime task force in Surrey. Because where's his riding? What was his riding? Wasn't it in there somewhere? Surrey, somewhere in Burnaby. Yeah, somewhere in that area there. Anyway, so those crime fighting mitts there he's got there, he could probably take on something.
But I don't know. He would require some RCMP officers behind him just to make sure that he doesn't lose. If he's going to start fights with people, you need the Mounties nearby.
If you can, people, if you're listening, if you could also send it to your MPs to come on the Really Big Show, that'd be great. If we could get Mark and Justin on too, like Justin should answer to the Canadian public. Justin should answer to the Canadian public. Chrystia Freeland should answer to the Canadian public, and not CBC to go on there and get their tires pumped and all that stuff. Come on here, answer some questions. Just a couple of questions.
I don't think we've got time, have we? Or maybe we do, but this one here that I put in there from Britain, you're saying, this is from a British, from Sky News here, from the British, one of the main British news.
No, we don't have it in there, but yeah.
You don't have it. But it's a very senior minister being exposed for...
You can play the clip? Go ahead. You can play the clip here.
Yeah, just give it a watch and imagine this happening on CTV. Imagine Vassie or somebody doing this.
Talking about social media, there's been a bit of consternation, I think is the right word, about a clip on social media that's been posted by Labour, and it's about Matthew Goodwin, who is the Reform candidate in this new by-election. I just want to play, if I may, so viewers know what I'm talking about. This is a clip that Labour put out on what he said.
I was lucky enough, or unfortunate enough, to be in Manchester a few days ago, and the energy in this room is 10 times what it was in Manchester, so congratulations.
I mean, that's really misleading, because he's talking about the Conservative conference. He's not talking about Manchester, is he?
Well, I've only just seen that. I think that the party is right to call out people and their views.
Yeah, but that's not. But it's misleading because it's making it seem like he's criticising Manchester, but he's actually criticising the Conservative conference, saying he didn't want to be the Conservative conference in Manchester.
Well, I don't know what he's referring to there. That was a very brief clip. You'll forgive me until I look into that. But I do think it's absolutely right that we call out different parties for what they're doing. And may I just say this?
You've got to do it accurately. This is the whole point, isn't it?
May I just say this on Reform? The reason that we were able to stop Grok and get X to change its mind, not something that happens often, was because of the Online Safety Act, which Nigel Farage and Reform want to scrap. We need to call that out so people see what they're really calling for, which I think is wrong.
I didn't even mean for it to go on that long, but that bit at the end is just from a Canadian perspective. I mean, it's a little bit too close to the bone, isn't it? It's just the same bloody conversation going on there. Even the same names of the act. But I just thought that was interesting because that's calling out politicians, and that's a member of the government, a senior member of the government, calling them out for their BS, basically. Just saying, look at this. That's fake. That's not accurate. Can you imagine that happening in Canada? Because there are many opportunities to do that with the Liberal Party. You never see it, though. You just never see them being called out.
That's our show for today. That's it. That's all we got. Jim Check, Ian Burns, Now Media. Please like, share, subscribe. Share this on your Facebook. Put it wherever you can. X, Facebook, especially if you see Liberal MPs advertising on Facebook or putting out their propaganda on Facebook, and CBC too. If they're on there, just put this right underneath there. And again, go look at their website. Look what CBC is pushing. They're no longer doing anything for Canada. They're just doing stuff to drive hate for our American neighbors next door, that we rest comfortably underneath the safety of their umbrella every night. We forget that, though, every night, don't we? We forget that we've neglected our media here, underfunded, under-equipped, underpaid, our media for over a decade and more, while we rest comfortably underneath the protection of their military. And yet we make it sound like they're going to come and invade us. That's just absolutely ludicrous. And we're going to use guns at like assault rifles to defend against the strongest military that this world has ever seen.
And also that we're just going to run agitprop on our public broadcaster to try and subvert the democratically elected will of the American people when it comes to immigration enforcement. We're running agitprop, Democratic Party style agitprop. Why? Why are we paying for this? Why is that happening in Canada? It doesn't make an awful lot of sense.
Anyway, we're back tomorrow at 9 a.m. Like every weekday, we're back. And if you could like, share, subscribe, that'd be appreciated. And we cut this up into smaller segments. We're adding chapters in now so that, some people that want to come and watch, because it is a 2-hour show. But again, you're going to learn more here probably in one show than you're going to get from the CBC in months. especially if you're learning about Canada, what's going on in Canada. Because they focus little on Canada, mostly on how to drive TDS and anger and all that stuff. Like, just look at their content. Like that, how do you get value? $1.5 billion for what they produce. Again, start a petition for us to take over for Rosie Barton and David Cochrane. That'd be funny if we stick that in their face there, right? So anyway, thank you, and we'll see you tomorrow morning at 9 a.m.